Good morning, Steve. So welcome back to the podcast again. What I wanted to do today was, we touched on it last time, was maybe go into in depth, a little bit more specific about some of the points we raised last time. First of all, how are we doing? How was your weekend?
All good. Yes, very good indeed. Been drumming all weekend, so I can't be happier. That's my happy place, if you like.
Yeah,
Yeah, good
definitely,
to
mate.
see you
Awesome.
again. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, awesome to hear. So I'm really interested, and I have been for a number of years, in mindfulness. I've used mindfulness quite a bit to help me deal with stress. My wife's used it as well. I kind of use exercise as a mindfulness as well. I use my jiu-jitsu as a form of mindfulness. And the way I understand mindfulness, and I'll get your opinion on how drumming involves mindfulness in a minute, but the way I think of it is it's kind of the space between your thoughts. So when you're worrying about things, the stresses that you've got going on in your life, we make up stories, don't we, about what's going to happen, and we extrapolate down the line, and we often come to like worst case scenarios of what's going to happen. And the way I use mindfulness is I use my breath as an anchor, and it's kind of trying to slow down the repetitiveness of the thoughts. So trying to make the gap between one thought and another, trying to make that as long as possible. You're never going to stop your thinking, because I don't think that's what it's about. But it's trying to slow down and not give energy to those thoughts. Does that make sense? Is that kind of, are we on the same page with mindfulness?
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of giving space and kind of pushing the thoughts out, trying to have bigger gaps between the
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, particularly if they're negative thoughts. Absolutely. I suppose that's really interesting, actually. So, my thoughts. Drumming is a physical thing, but it's a mental thing. I think we touched on it when we spoke previously around how the brain is using so much different areas within the brain to control physical and mental at the same time. Um, and so, where you said about using sport as part of your mindfulness, I see an alignment there with drumming as well, because you're active, you're physically doing something, and so that's something to focus on. So while you're focusing on doing something physical, that's less space for your negative thoughts to operate in, because you're concentrating on something else. And so with drumming, um, I kind of think of drumming in a zone I like to get to within the drumming. So you can be playing and thinking, and if you're learning a particular piece or a rhythm or a beat or a song or whatever, then you're really focusing on that particular beat, that particular rhythm, that particular song. But then once you've got it and you get into the rhythm and into the song and into what's happening in the rhythm, um, you can go in what I refer to the zone, and I think sports people talk about the zone in a similar way. Um, and that is that you just get immersed in what you're doing. You're not even thinking anymore and focusing on it. You just become immersed in it. And in that, time kind of disappears sometimes. And the longer it disappears for, the less you're thinking about anything else. So in our sessions, for instance, we do something called the journey. So with a journey, I ask people to imagine that their drum acts as a sound that we create as we hit the drum. But I'll ask people to imagine the sound as something different. So one day I might ask you to use the drum and pretend that each time the sticks hit the drum, that's your feet hitting the ground, and I take you on a journey and we walk somewhere, and it could be anywhere, and it could be in all weather or conditions. It could be something else. It could be the wheels on a bike going round, so the pedals as they go round. Each time there's a motion, that's your drum stick hitting the pad. So you're physically doing something that you're focusing on, if you like. But while you're doing that, your mind's going somewhere else. And so again, you've got that thing where basically, yes, you're focusing and eventually becoming the zone. While you're in the zone, and it would just keep a sort of, I'm almost making the beats of my hands here to give you
Yeah,
an idea of sort of like the motion that might be going on. And we might speed that up, but we'll stay at a pace for a while. And then we might slow it down and stay at a pace. And while you're doing that, I'll talk you through what I see. And so I'll have 10 people in a room sitting there, eyes closed or eyes open, whichever they prefer. For me, it works better if I close my eyes, because I can really visualize. And if somebody else is happy to sort of perhaps take us along the journey a bit, I can imagine what they're saying. And as you're doing that, all of a sudden, you're sort of focused right in on what's happening within that particular moment in this imaginary place. And again, there's no space for negative thoughts, hopefully. And so one of the feedbacks that I get from the workshops is often, wow, where did that time go? It was so quick, it disappeared. And that's kind of, I think, when people have experienced the zone. And sometimes just the whole session seems to rush by because we're getting so involved, whether it's doing the exercise you just sort of described there, might be 2 minutes long, might be 3. Very rarely is it more than that. But while we're playing along to music in one of our drum along sessions, for instance, you get absorbed into the rhythm of whatever it is we're playing. And that might not be with drums. We might be using percussion instruments and shakers and beaters and whatever else. But again, as people sort of get familiar with the other sounds around them, that we're playing along to whatever music, then you can feel that everybody's kind of in a zone, and our eyes are open, and we're fully awake, and we're fully in, in the same place together. But we're not thinking about anything else. So one of the feedbacks, I'd say this is an anonymous feedback that I've had from people. For instance, if I've been working with cancer patients or people who are sort of have got Parkinson's, or they've had heart issues, and these are some of the groups that I work with quite regularly. And quite often, not from one, but a lot of people will say that's the time when, do you know what, I can forget everything. And for some people, they can even forget some of the pain that they might constantly suffer. And again, that's just, I think, they're in the zone. But it's really the fact that once you start to drum, and I touched on this before, and you get into a rhythm, the brain gets into a rhythm. And when the brain gets into a rhythm, that's when it releases a very relaxing endorphin feeling within the body. And you just, the fact that it's physical as well as you're there and you're focusing and you're concentrating, that takes you to the zone. Scientists can explain that better than me, but my experience personally, that's what happens for me. And I don't actually meditate anymore. I used to have time for meditation, and I should take it up again. But I actually find that if I've been into a zone for quite a while, I have that same benefits as I do when I was meditating. So I would agree, mindfulness is a place where you can forget everyday worries, or put them out, create space, effectively push them out of your mind or out of your consciousness for now, and just enjoy that time.
Touched on a few things there, and I think the word meditation for people, it conjures up all sorts of like preconceived ideas as to what meditation is, and you've got to sit there cross-legged, and you've got to have incense and mantras on all the time behind you. But I think we can kind of break down some of those barriers to approaching a practice of meditation. And what you said there, and you're talking about being in the zone, and it's in a flow state, isn't it? Scientists will call it a flow state. Mm-hmm. And it essentially boils down to you're doing an activity to get you into the flow state, to make you present, aren't you? So it's keeping you in that moment, keeping you present. So you're not thinking about external events, or you're not letting your mind run away with you. And where you're talking about the beat or the visualization of the pedals on a bike, that's anchoring you to the present, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, and I'll often say, because I feel as if I'm focused a lot on the quiet, gentle side of drumming. You can be going hell for leather and still get to that place, and I thoroughly encourage that. And that's like really like, you're like you're having a good laugh. You're just letting things letting things go, really letting them out. But you can still get in the zone doing that as well. In my opinion,
we have the same sentiment from my training partners and teammates at the jiu-jitsu club. You go in hell for leather. You're trying to kill each other essentially, but there's that meditative. The endorphins, the dopamine, people have forgotten about the issues they might have in the job, they might have at home for at least that hour anyway. The problems are still going to be there, but for that hour at least, they've been present, they've been there, they've been in that, or as close as they can get to that flow state. And I think it's a really good way to get people to start to approach. And it doesn't have to be like, people can go down the meditation and be like spiritual with it. That's a certain aspect of it, but it can be as simple as doing something that you enjoy doing, drumming, getting in sync with the rhythm, and being in that flow state.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. But if I was, we're having a conversation here that other people may well tune into, listen to, and think, "Oh, right, okay."
Hopefully.
They may not have. What I should really say is, from my perspective with the drumming, most of the people I drum with who come to the workshops, the majority of them, before they've come to the workshop, may never have drummed before in their lives. So we're not talking about people who are drummers doing this and getting these benefits. We're talking about anyone, first time, beginners, if you like, walking into a room, sitting down. And my sessions aren't about teaching you to play the drums. My sessions are about, right, this is the drum, this is how you can hit it. I'm not going to get into the technical side of it, and we're not going to be learning any of the rudiments or the ways and the rights and the wrongs of drumming. What you're going to do is you're going to hit the drum, you're going to feel a beat, and I'll help you to achieve that. And then you're going to run with that. And there's no judgment on whether you're playing the drum as a musician, because you're not there to do that. You're there to have fun effectively. So that doesn't mean to say that drummers don't come and enjoy it, because actually drummers who can play drum kit do. But we're using reduced volume pads, which allow you to, if you want, beat the hell out of them. Or if you want to play gently, still hear what you're playing, because of the way they're designed. And because you can do that, you can enjoy it literally, sit down, start, and you can be achieving like the zone, if you like, within our very first session, even halfway through it, sometimes not even that far into it. So it's not complicated, it's not hard, it's not something where you think, I would have to do that for ages to get to there. Not the case at all. It's really easy to achieve. I know that you really love walking. It's like walking. We can all do it. There's no, there's not a right way.
There's no barriers to stopping people doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I really like what you touched on earlier about how one of the things that keeps people in this flow state is having other people in the session where you're all coming together and you're all keeping in the rhythm. Obviously, you can do it on your own. You touched on that last time in our longer conversation, that you can just be your own little zone. You don't have to be. Because am I right in saying that the pads that you use, if I was drumming and I was maybe getting the beat out of sync with everybody else, I can still be in my own little zone here, kind of working my own little beat.
Absolutely. As a group, to be honest with you, as a group, nobody's got to play the same thing at all. But then the sound in the room overall, if you actually sort of focused on what can I hear, which people don't, because they tend to focus on themselves, to be fair. But if you do and you sat back, the group kind of carries the rhythm between them. So someone might be playing this and somebody else might be playing that, but together. And if you've got 10 people doing different things, but there's like a pulse that goes on in the room. So you go, and there is a cycle that sort of just happens. And it doesn't matter if you're totally out the cycle, because being out the cycle just adds another element to the cycle. So it might be doing this. And so you're absolutely right. If you think, I've got the worst timing in the world, that doesn't matter. You've got a heartbeat. You wouldn't be alive if you didn't have one. And you just fall into it. I've never, ever, in all of the workshops that I've done, had someone who gone, I can't do it, and walk out.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that, we do hundreds of workshops a year, and so we see thousands of people over the time since we first started to see this to now. So that's a lot of people where nobody ever walked out because
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you, Steve. That was really what I wanted to talk to you about today, the mindfulness kind of side of the drumming. We didn't really get into it last time, and it's a topic that I'm quite passionate about. I use mindfulness, and it's really interesting to hear another way of approaching that subject matter, using drums, using drumming, and that beat and that pattern. Really interesting, mate. So just before we go, if people are interested in the sessions, where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so come via the website at rhythmreaction.org, or you can go to Rhythm Reaction on Facebook, same on Twitter and Instagram, or you can phone, actually, if you want to know something about where we are, or if you've got a question prior to coming to a session, you think that might be something I'd like to do. Obviously, you can email us via either any of those, or you can call me on 0781 4045 918. And if I can't sort of take the call straight away, I'll come back to you. Just leave a message or a text. and we will speak to you.
Brilliant, Steve. Thanks very much for your time again this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. See you soon. Take care, mate. All right, cheers.